So as it pertains to this episode, where's there a gap or is there a gap in self-worth in your relationship? How might someone who's in a relationship right now thinking to themselves, okay, yeah, I'm kind of searching, where might there be a gap in my relationship? Like, given what you just said, where might that show or rear its ugly head really quick?
So if someone has self-worth that appears at a 10, but only level 2 goals, or they have self-worth at a 10, but they only have maybe level 2 standards for themselves, that's a mismatch.
Conscious couples, business partners, and individuals, welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and relationship expertise to help you consistently cultivate the most magnificent relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges. We'll help you have the courage to be your authentic self, communicate effectively, and constructively resolve conflict.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching, speaking, podcasting, and hosting live events with conscious couples all over the world, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode 233. Is there a self-worth gap in your relationship? So before we jump into this episode, I want to remind everyone why we're here at the We. We grow together, not apart. It's right there. For those of you not on YouTube. Nice. For those of you not on YouTube, I'm pointing to our logo right behind us. The point of this is to talk about important topics and to grow your relationship from the inside out. And that only happens when the two me's improve so that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, So sweetheart, we had a Relationship Talks virtual event. Ladies first, what is your intention for today?
Yeah, so my intention today is to pull what we learned as a community, Conscious Couples community, from that event together and highlight where the discrepancy might be in the conscious couples that are listening to this in terms of self-worth, because there's a lot underneath that came out in the event in the chat. And I want to make sure that we can build on that in this community.
So we used a film from 2017 called The Big Sick. And it's a com-rom, which is what you have called it.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before you.
I'm making it a thing.
Yeah, okay, nice. So it's a com-rom, which basically means it's romantic, but it's mostly comedy.
It's way more comedy than it is romantic.
Than it is romantic. However, there is a character, Kumail and Emily, who have serious self-worth issues. And they get into a relationship, and we did an event where this was kind of the through line of the event. And you had a quote that you said in the event that I thought was world class.
Yeah.
And it is, you do not rise to the level of your standards, you fall to the level of your self-worth. And I guess what I want to start with, and we have discussion questions here, each of us, what I want to start with is, what does that quote mean to you, but also to anyone listening?
Yeah. So essentially, Kumail and Emily were the great examples of the fact that they want to have a great relationship and they want to be the best partner that they can be to one another, but that want to and are able to, there was a big gap in that. And why that gap existed was because of the self-worth that they had. Both of it was in the garbage. So while they wanted to maybe be a better partner, they were literally unable to. So what that quote means to me is essentially, we can want to become better all we want. We can want to become a better partner, but if we're not actually working on the intrinsic self-worth and increasing our identity in tandem with that, you're not necessarily going to have the skill sets or the capacity to be able to be that better version of yourself with your partner. So you can try to do all the little things that matter, but if your self-worth is still in the gutter, you're going to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. And that's not ultimately going to help your relationship.
So, all right. One of the scenes where they got in their first huge fight, she realized that there was a bunch of red flags that she had neglected. Because you just went from the frame of like building your own self-worth to be a better partner, To me, that seems a little bit more like self-belief, developing skills, trying to be a better partner for someone else. We're talking about standards and self-worth from the sense of like she let red flags go for a really long time, and then she found out that essentially he had been being set up with all these arranged marriages from his mom, and he had been like dodging the opportunities that she had to meet his family because his family, it turns out, is alarmingly racist and not willing to let him marry a white girl. And she freaks out when she finds this out and essentially finally leaves him and realizes that she neglected a bunch of red flags prior to that. And I think it's because of her low self-worth.
Yeah.
Right? So can we explain it from that frame of like you get what you tolerate based on your self-worth. So talk to us about standards and self-worth from that frame.
So Emily, because her self-worth was low, she, even though, and we mentioned this in the event, but this happens all the time in relationships, your intuition, something will signal that you should maybe speak up to your partner, or maybe say, hey, why have you been dodging my family? Or I've been wanting to introduce you to my friends, and it seems like every single time you're not available. Like, what's going on with that? Someone with higher levels of self-worth would be open to inquiring and being curious about that and confronting of that, because they have the level of self-respect and deservancy inherently within them to where they're not just negotiating with that signal and just steamrolling over their intuition that is essentially throwing up a red flag.
So a woman with low self-worth, like Emily in the film, would just override that intuition and just let him kind of neglect the parents meeting and them meeting each other's parents. Whereas a woman with high self-worth would say, why do you keep dodging these opportunities to meet my family?
Yeah, she wouldn't tolerate it.
And why won't you introduce me to your parents?
Right. There needs to be an explanation here.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to bring an explanation that has any logical sense, then I'm likely going to reconsider this relationship.
And it's like when you have a red flag come up, what you're supposed to do is talk about it and see if it actually is a red flag.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's a red flag that's just a fear that's not valid. You did validate, dissipate. Early in our relationship, you taught me validate, dissipate. So if a red flag comes up, we talk about it and we go, oh, that's actually nothing. We're all good. And someone with high self-worth would bring it up. Someone with low self-worth wouldn't. I see that a lot as courage too. But maybe the self-worth is the precursor to even noticing that you should bring it up.
Yeah. So the discussion question that I had for this one, I think is beautiful to weave in here, because I had brought up, what's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic self-worth?
Nice.
And I want to talk about the intrinsic part. So intrinsic self-worth, let's just talk about like self-worth in general, is this deep inherent belief that you have about yourself, that you are worthy and deserving of love, regardless of your external status, approvals, etc. And so when someone has and cultivates and consistently nurtures that core belief about themselves, that they are inherently lovable, they are deserving of love, they are deserving and worthy in this world.
Which is your relationship with yourself, essentially.
Correct,
right?
correct. Yeah. And if, as you develop that and steward that, you end up noticing those little tiny moments, and because you're deserving and worthy of love, that because-ness essentially translates into behaviors to uphold the level of self-worth. So for example, because I hold that belief, I hold a high belief of self, and I believe deeply in my bones that I am worthy and deserving of love, regardless of whatever accomplishments or people that are in my life, regardless of that. If there's something that my intuition is sending up as a red flag, I'm going to clock that and say, hey, I need to listen to this. This is a really important signal because it's coming from within. And so that signal, then I give it a voice and I say, hey, what's going on here? There's been this behavior, this is noticeable. And so I'm actively not avoiding that signal and pressing it down. People who have low levels of self-worth.
Yeah. Don't listen to their intuition.
They don't listen to their intuition because they don't trust themselves deep down, because they don't believe that they are inherently worthy or deserving or lovable of trusting themselves. And so people who have lower self-worth and don't actually build a belief of deeper self-worth, they can't even get to the, oh, there's raising a flag. Like it literally just is stuffed.
What's the simplest explanation for extrinsic versus intrinsic self-worth?
Intrinsic is something that is, first of all, it's intangible, meaning it's inside of you. It's not anything that you can like put your hands on, like a book, for example. And intrinsic self-worth is nurtured through the thoughts, the emotions, and the feelings that you have about yourself.
It's your relationship
Based
with
on-
yourself that no one else can see.
For example, like your self-talk, right? Or like when you fail, are you going into self-shame, or are you going into like, that's totally okay, like we're good, we're going to learn from this next time? Another thing is the validation. Are you self-validating, or are you looking to receive that from someone else? Extrinsic self-worth is essentially you are
Social status.
dependent upon an external thing like social status,
Or being
the
popular.
job, popularity, approval from others,
Looks.
etc. To essentially put, looks, anything really, like how many books you have in your library, or you're like how many cars you have. Like you are putting the quote unquote qualifier
What
of
if
your
they're
worth.
leather bound? Ron Burgundy. I have many
Love it.
leather bound books.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But essentially, you're putting that mark in the hands, essentially, of the external world around you, which is always going to be shifting and changing, and you don't have full control over it. So it's an unwinnable game. And that's why a lot of people, right, like this is kind of jumping just a micro hot step, but I want to go here. That's when you have a lot of the boomer and Gen Xer generation, when they are hitting their midlife crisis, they've gotten the boats, they've gotten the cars, they've gotten all these externalities to try to increase their sense of self-worth and self-esteem, but yet they feel ridiculously hollow inside. Why is that? Because they've focused on the external success at the expense of their internal success and internal sense of intrinsic self-worth.
So how do we convince people, this is a hypothetical question, how do we convince people to cultivate worth from within? Because I'm not convinced that people know that their dream home and dream car, like I have the woman of my dreams, we're about to get the car of my dreams, our dreams, the home of our dreams, like we're achieving our dreams. And I think a lot of people that are extrinsically driven don't realize that if you do it from the inside out, all your dreams will be an inevitable byproduct of that.
Correct.
And I actually am not even convinced that that's the case anymore, because I know some people who have great relationship with themselves, but they don't know the economy.
Correct.
They don't know business.
How to
And
navigate
so you need
external
both,
world.
right? And that's why self-belief versus self-worth is so important to understand. We're going to focus on self-worth today. Keeping the promises you make to yourself.
Yes.
Trying to reach your own potential. Building self-respect by doing hard things by choice. These are how
Trying
you
to
build.
figure out what your values are and making sure that you're staying in alignment. All of those things that are building, like I just want to add it into that because it's so powerful. Like you and I, we operate within integrity of our values every single day. And whenever there's a swerve, we are naming that and going back and trying to analyze from like a loving scientific standpoint of like, okay, what happened there? Why did we swerve? What happened?
Well, I think when we don't take the high road, not just we, but everyone, all human beings, when you take the cowardly way out or you don't speak up, you teach yourself that you're not, you lose self-respect.
You're not deserving of speaking up for. That's
Yeah.
essentially what you're teaching
Right,
yourself.
exactly.
And which is just, it's like a notch in the jar of like lower self-worth.
Yep.
You're just constantly putting notches in that jar, or marbles in that jar, and eventually like it's just gonna bust. Like
I picture someone being bullied and you witnessing it, and someone's being really treated unjustly, and then you step in and like tell the bully to shut it.
yeah.
You stood up for that person. What we're saying here is you have to do that for you.
Love it.
And she does that in that moment, and she finally takes back her powers, like, I'm out of here. And then later throughout the film, he builds self-worth, and then they end up sort of meeting again towards the end, but now from a place where they can actually win because they have self-worth cultivated from within.
Yeah.
Okay, so my discussion question is...
May I comment on that for just a moment?
Of course.
The self-advocacy in that, what I've found, and I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this, as you, and self-worth is a constant process. I like to think of it like a garden, as always.
Nice.
But like as you develop and steward and garden your own sense of self-worth, every single day it's something that you tend to. What I've noticed is that people, as they increase like a notch up on their self-worth, that bully example is one. As you do that, in proportionality, there's a lagging skill that has to be focused in on, which is self-advocacy, which is essentially voicing it. Have you also noticed that every single time there's a notch up in self-worth, there's usually some degree of a need for a notch up in self-advocacy, which is the voicing of your self-worth?
I think this is why I think self-improvement and personal development and personal growth is so not popular. I think it's because as you get better at it, it actually makes everything harder. So the more self-worth that I build, so I had a friend reach out, kind of a dig toward me, and I called him out, which took courage. And I'm glad that I did, because after that, he was very kind. And we're good now. But little Alan needed to see adult Alan shield bump a past bully who used to bully me around.
Gotcha.
And that ain't flying anymore, sir. All right, we're 37 now. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
But what I do want to say is that didn't make my life easier. Now I have to do that with everyone.
Right.
And so now I have this new standard. And I think that that's the thing that between Evolve Ventures, Next Level University, and the Conscious Couples podcast, we have 3,500, something like that. Over 3,000 episodes in personal development, self-improvement, personal growth, inner and outer work, mental health, professional development, social development, you name it. Like making yourself better, being the best version of yourself. The more you do that, the harder your life becomes, particularly in the social world with relationships. And so, when you notch up your courage, you then notch up your self-worth, but now you see all the other places where you're being a coward.
Where you have to it's like because of your identity. And that's where that quote comes back in. Like, okay, now I actually have to stand up for that version of me in that area. And it's like, you're kind of like backed into a corner of self-advocacy when you have high self-worth, which I think is a good thing to just name
No,
that.
of course it's a good thing. It just makes everything much more difficult. And I think the biggest lie in the world, one of the biggest lies that I see perpetuated on social media is that success makes life easier.
Yeah.
Success doesn't make life easier. And I always use the metaphor of when you get to the NBA or the NFL or the World Cup, it's not suddenly easier. You're playing the best team in the world now.
Higher.
Yeah, the stakes are way higher and it's way harder. Now you're playing against the best in the world.
With like everyone's eyes on you as the best in the world.
Yeah, so the more success, Next Level University, the more I find the next level version of me, but you, anyone out there listening, the harder everything becomes to maintain that new standard. All right, so my discussion question, my remarkable wanted to sleep, so it's going to take a second. How does someone figure out what their accurate level of self-worth actually is? So in the event, I stopped the event. We were on a roll, and I said, wait. Before we go any further, we need to assess 0 to 10, where is your self-worth? Then there was this whole thing of, well, intellectually or emotionally. So it's a whole thing, another episode. But what I do want to know is how do you actually accurately assess your level of self-worth? Because quite frankly, this is a you versus you inner game. And I like the bell curve. I want to understand, like if I pluck 100 random people from a Walmart, okay, who has the highest self-worth and how do you tell? Because the Walmart part was a joke from book club. But anyways, anyone at book club will know what I'm talking about. But anyways, so how do you actually know? What are the external indicators of high self-worth? Because I know some dinguses who appear to have the highest self-worth, but it's not real. It's fake and inflated and nonsense, and it makes me want to dislike them.
No, this is not urine.
Sweetheart. Oh man, that's good.
For anyone in audio, I am drinking
Yellow drink.
a yellow drink, and I just needed to call the elephant out.
Good for you. Yeah, nice.
So
This actually is.
I hear there's some really good longevity studies on that.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so
Heard that from Bear Grylls.
so
Just joking.
that's good. Okay, so how do you know that? Because it is subjective, it is relative, everything is relative based on the statistical sample set that you're pulling from.
What are
which
you
is
looking
what
for?
you're letting to.
What are you looking for?
So what I'm looking for
When you see self-worth.
Okay, so on a spectrum, on a 10, this is like high levels of self-worth. Obviously, I think that this is obvious, but I want to make sure.
Yep.
0 is like no self-worth whatsoever.
So where were they in the film at the beginning?
I remember you asked this. I think they were at Kumail was at a 3, and I think Emily was at a 4. Okay. She was just like one notch above. And by the way, this is fascinating in social dating and coupling. Usually you're attracting something right close to your level of self-worth.
Agreed.
And knowing, this is one thing that I'm just random, but I need to include it. One thing I find is that if you're not aware of where your self-worth is and your partner's is, it is very easy to get hoodwinked, internalize their behavior, which is what Emily was doing. She had higher self-worth, but Kumail pretended like he had higher self-worth.
Okay.
He acted like cold shoulder, like it was cool. No, that's fine, which is the classic anxious avoidant
And he was a
kind of
comedian
thing.
and that whole thing, yeah.
So it's a whole nother thing.
Real quick, I used to say this all the time in my 20s, and again, I say this with a grain of salt, but I used to say 10s date 10s, 8s date 8s, 7s date 7s, and I didn't just mean attractiveness as in physical looks. I mean, I think I meant this, self-belief and self-worth.
Correct.
And I said unless there's a ton of money or a ton of insecurity. And that's where things get wonky.
Or a ton of manipulation.
Or a ton of manipulation, exactly. And so,
abuse.
okay, continue.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. So self-worth, how do we know? How do we see it? One of the most difficult things that I've noticed is that it isn't as obvious.
Yeah. Because people can fake it.
Exactly.
They can bluff so hard.
That's why personally, I'm able to understand where someone's self-worth is as soon as I hear them talk.
Only, so how long has that taken you though? Because I used to get this wrong on the reg. And I think sometimes people with inflated ego, inflated self-worth, entitlement, it comes off as confidence to people. Now I can catch it really quickly in their tonality and the fact that they're completely full of shit. But I couldn't tell before.
True. So this is honestly, it's 31 years of the compound effect of me understanding. But one thing why I say that is because
you were assessing self-worth at one.
Well, here's the thing. Like I've said this to our clients, like, let me get underneath the hood, meaning like, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're feeling. Like, just open your mouth and give me your genuine, like, I don't want covered up thoughts. Just like share what your genuine thoughts are. Because doing that, how you speak, the word choice, the tonality, the inflection of your voice, how you're perceiving things, that helps me understand essentially your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about others, and your belief about the world. And all in between that is where self-worth lives. So for example, if someone's like, well, you know, Emilia, like I tried to go for that job and I couldn't get myself to finalize that application, or a client that I just got off, she was just submitting her application for first year semester in college. And the way in which she was just so nervous about it and sharing like, I this was actually a lot easier than I thought it was. It's like, okay, well, why did you think that? I know, and this is going to be a logical leap, but she has really low levels of self-worth. And so with that low level of self-worth, she's not actually moving the belief and the behavior of taking that action alone by herself.
Okay.
So her body doubling with me helped her really feel more confident and like she was worthy of actually moving the needle on her future career.
Let's give 3 indicators of each external of inflated fake self-worth.
Body posture.
Okay.
Overly.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't done. All right, give me a minute. What are you saying? Okay, so, and then we're going to give 3 authentic.
Okay.
So the first 3 are someone who's pretending to have pocket aces, who was awesome in high school, but not anymore. The second one is authentic self-worth. So I want 3 between the 2 of us. 3. Okay, so body posture. Tell me about the inflated fake body posture. Yeah. And tell me about the real one.
Okay, so you and I both have someone that will come to mind who had an inflated sense of self-worth. And this person, whenever she would walk, she would be kind of like this stature. Now, we understand why that is, but that's the inflated sense of self-worth, meaning
it's not real, it's pretend.
Exactly, it's pretend, but that body posture is indicative of the opposite, which is she's fearful to take up space and therefore needs to pretend like she's not by taking up more space and having an extreme opening in her body posture.
Okay.
So flip side, authentic body posture will communicate someone who has authentic, accurate self-worth, which is not overly inflated like Alan's doing right now, but also not like shriveled up and like a shell of themselves, you know?
Yeah,
like,
it's at 5. It's not overdoing it like a puffer fish, but it's also not a turtle shell.
Exactly.
So
Love
it's someone at 5, someone accurate. Okay, so that's number 1 is body posture.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
No, real quick. One of them would be, okay, so here's one of inflated self-worth. Someone who has an opinion about everything, who never really studies it and has never been there. So people with inflated self-worth that's fake, I feel like they have opinions about what everyone else should do, but they don't lead by example. That's that. people who don't lead by example, I had a very arrogant person try to teach me how to deadlift once, and he was like, well, my brother was a personal trainer for a decade.
Oh, we
and I was like,
love
brother,
those
you've
guys.
never been in the gym in your life.
Right, but
like
his brother was,
Exactly,
though,
but his
so he
brother was.
immediately takes that on as his own.
Exactly. And so just to get back to it, like, who are you and what are you when no one's watching? If you have a strong opinion about something, it should mean that there's a lot of scaffolding underneath that opinion,
Right.
that are not only study, practice, teach, but like experiential.
Failures,
And so I'm in the gym every
experiments.
other day with you. We've exercised every day for coming up on, we're over 1,600 days now. So yeah, I'm going to talk fitness and I'm going to act like I know what I'm talking about because it's all I do. But someone who does that, even though they've never actually been consistent.
Yeah, talkers, not walkers.
People who don't lead by example is inflated self-worth that's pretending to be self-belief. And people who do lead by example and almost don't want to talk about it, those people have high self-belief and probably accurate self-worth.
So as it pertains to this episode, where is there a gap or is there a gap in self-worth in your relationship? How might, given what you just said, how might someone who's in a relationship right now thinking to themselves, okay, yeah, I'm kind of searching, where might there be a gap in my relationship? Like, given what you just said, where might that show or rear its ugly head really quick?
So if someone has self-worth that appears at a 10, but only level 2 goals, or they have self-worth at a 10, but they only have maybe level 2 standards for themselves, that's a mismatch. We got to do one more, we'll get out of here. So we wanted to give 3. So the first one is body posture, the second one is leading by example, and a gap in what they say versus what they do. What would be the third one? Indicator of inflated self-worth versus authentic.
I honestly kind of go back to the gardening analogy. If you're having and stewarding self-worth, then you are taking care of the garden. In other words, you're taking care of your vessel, your body, the little things that make up what you are. You appreciate your health, you take care of it in action, you go exercise, you take care of the hygiene elements that are important for self-worth and preservation of such. So the opposite of someone who has inflated self-worth, you'll see them always decked out, full-blown makeup, the best everything, the nails,
Louis Vuitton bag,
the
plastic
baloney.
surgery.
Yeah, the baloney.
The baloney, yeah.
And
Vanity
that's
metrics.
Exactly. It goes all the way to
And
an
then you
extent
have
where
some
it's
people with no self-worth who don't take care of themselves at
all, right? And
they don't
let
they
themselves
aren't,
go.
it's a temple. Treat your body like a temple, not a woodshed.
Yeah, I love it.
Right? And so that's a good one. That's a really good one. But some people are trying to fake high self-worth with all the nails and all that stuff. And some people aren't. Some people really do want to do their nails, right?
For sure.
So, but you have to be able to call that out. If it's way over the top, it's most likely. I like to think of the Hunger Games film. If you go to the Capitol versus District 12, and there's a scene where he says it's wild. In District 1, they're eating a bunch and then drinking something to make themselves throw up just so they can eat more while people are starving in 12. And they have all the giant peacock dresses and all this. And it's just like, have we lost?
Yeah.
We've lost sight of what's important. Because I think the most attractive human is the healthiest human, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, not necessarily the most plastic surgery or the most vanity metrics.
Right.
And the Louis Vuitton bag and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's just insane. Okay, so, and obviously we're not for any of that. So if you want to click the link in the show notes, we have a Louis Vuitton bag. I'm kidding. All right. All right, sweetheart, we got to get out of here. Next Relationship Talks virtual event is?
Yes, so it is. And just from August to October, I need to make sure that I say this. Our Relationship Talks events are moving to Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please note that for those who are always there. But the next one is decluttering your relationship and eliminating overwhelm.
Nice.
So what Alan and I have learned and have studied with relationships all the time, we see this, is that more often than not, couples will have this moment or this experience where it's like, yeah, it wasn't really that great, didn't really like it. And they kind of dread these things over and over again. But some relationships will actually have the courage to declutter those things that they dread all the time. And it honestly liberates them and allows them to actually free themselves up for the things that they actually care about in their relationship. So that Relationship Talks event is going to be all about how to actually do that, decluttering your relationship, making sure that you're not overwhelmed as a couple, and operating the way in which conscious couples do, which is growing together and not apart at a rapid rate that everyone around you is like, what are they doing? They're like the role models. They're the go-to.
I want to share this. So Emilia and I, we had gone to the movies, and it was kind of an S show, and it was crowded, and it was a whole thing. And afterwards, you were like, I don't think I want to do that anymore. And we instead now have a 117-inch home theater. That was your idea, projector. It's unfreaking believable, 4K. And now we have a way better experience because you had the courage to say, I'm no longer wanting to do that. And so that's what we're saying in this event. Declutter the crap. We want to live a hell yes life. And if something's not a hell yes, then it's a no. Be more discerning. I think the older and older and older I get, the more and more I look back at Facebook memories, the more and more I go, I was so naive and I did too many things that just were not that important.
And that you didn't just love. Like, we want to design lives that you like love. That you want to like. You just want to tell people about, and you want to just live, and they're so meaningful. And when you look back at your memories, instead of just pain and suffering and clutter, and you're like, oh gosh,
drama,
hand in the knees, you instead look back at the memories and are like, wow, our life has become so meaningful.
Yeah, we got the weeds out of the garden. So we're going to help you do that. De-weed your life. All right, and I also have relationship talks coaching inside out program Emilia and I do. She does the inside, I do the outside. Reverse engineer your goals and dreams and build self-worth from within. The first one is free. I actually have one coming up with one of your clients I'm excited for.
Nice.
All right, everyone, thank you for listening. As always, it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please check the show notes to connect with us and say hello on social media.
If you and your partner resonated with this episode, please leave us a 5-star review at the link in the show notes and share this with someone you love. Until next time, it's not about you or me, it's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.